Jake Ludington here at OSCON, and I'm at the Gluster booth where we're going to talk about file systems. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Tom Trainer, Director of Marketing at Gluster.
I'm John Kreisa, VP of Marketing at Gluster.
So for people who may not know Gluster, what exactly is it?
John?
So Gluster is an open source company that backs GlusterFS. We have an open source file system that's used for storage for large-scale files and files in general.
So people are probably familiar with NFS. How are you guys different than NFS?
Well, in fact, we're not different from NFS. We actually support NFS and CIFS, and also GlusterFS, which is kind of like PNFS. So if you're familiar with parallel NFS, we support that as well. So what we are different from is the standard file system that everybody knows and loves that's been around for years and years. We've actually changed our file system to a hashtag-based implementation, and that's where we're different. And so that really develops and produces speed of file reclamation. When we're actually trying to read a file and do something with it, we get that file very quickly and deliver it to the application or to the user.
Because in a traditional server environment, when a user or anything goes to look up a file, it has to go hit the file system database that is native to the operating system, look it up and say, where does this thing live? And so you guys have worked around that to make that faster?
Yeah, we have. That's exactly right. And what we do when we store the file, we create a hashtag. We store the hashtag, store the file, and when the file is requested again by the application, we run the hashtag through an algorithm very quickly, picoseconds compared to milliseconds, sometimes even longer when you're looking through an index or a journal in the traditional file system.
What would be an example use case where somebody would stand to benefit a great deal from using Gluster versus just relying on the traditional file system?
Well, I guess the simple answer is any application environment or any business environment that needs to access a file quickly and deliver it to a user or an application faster than they've ever tried to do it before. Another example of that would be Pandora Internet Radio. That's built on top of Gluster, and they chose Gluster out of lots and lots of trials and solutions with hardware vendors and other software vendors. And they chose Gluster because of that core differentiator of being able to retrieve a file very quickly. And in their case, they retrieve multiple files in different formats. So they're music files, and they deliver them to web caches and then stream them out to all of us who like Pandora and use it.
So there's probably millions of us out there that are using Gluster and don't even realize it.
Yeah, so when you were listening to Lady Gaga, I'm sure you were, everybody does.
Of course, every morning.
Absolutely, yes. Bad Romance is very popular right now. But when you're listening to that music, you actually are listening to information that was stored through Gluster onto storage devices and then read back and delivered into your ears as music.
And just today you guys announced something that is making OpenStack and Gluster play better together. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So today we announced that we are expanding the storage options that are available for OpenStack in two ways. One is we announced a connector, Gluster connector for OpenStack, and that enables the users of an OpenStack deployment to see the Gluster file system and use it for all of their virtual machine storage. Right? So it gives more flexibility, another option for scaling out the storage. In addition, we also announced that you can use the Gluster file system file and object components within the OpenStack deployments, and that unifies all of the storage that somebody who's a user of the OpenStack deployment has. So it gives them more flexibility in terms of storing both their files and objects, their application data, and their virtual machines on one single scale-out file system underneath OpenStack.
Nice. And something that I didn't realize that was available is, can you talk a little bit about the geosync feature? I've used Gluster for networked applications that need to replicate, but I didn't realize that you could do it both across availability zones in something like an AWS, as well as across both long distances, like across regions.
Yeah, exactly, right. We have customers today who deploy within Amazon Web Services in, for example, the eastern region, and they replicate files multiple times across availability zones within the region so that they have immediate recoverability in case there's a problem with an availability zone or a piece of hardware that takes them down. And that's an important thing to do, is to have multiple copies. Whether you're in Amazon or you're in a data center, it's important to have multiple copies of your information so that you have the ability to restart and recover very quickly and have more or less business continuity to some extent. And then when we implemented geo-replication back in May, we enabled customers to continue on with that synchronous replication, but also now, if they like, they can deploy asynchronous replication that allows the replication of data or files independent of any time constraints associated with the application or the user, and it can do it as a background task and move information over large geographic areas for, by and large, disaster recovery support.
And while it's certainly cool to talk about the cloud, is Gluster limited to cloud applications?
No, actually Gluster enables the cloudification of applications, because what we do is software, and we provide software, and so customers can deploy us in a data center or a private cloud. They can deploy us in the public cloud, and what they get in the public cloud is something called a NAS file server, right? That's what we do, network attached storage file serving. And so when you have that NAS in the cloud, you're then able to move your applications to the cloud and use those files you've traditionally used in the data center. And on that topic, back in I guess it was May, we won 2 awards at the Citrix Synergy Conference in San Francisco. One was for accelerating cloud adoption, and the second was Best of Show. Out of all of the folks that entered, we were chosen Best of Show, and that's really because of what we do with our software and enabling users to install this file system in the cloud and in the data center. So it's very innovative and business enabling, if you will.
So if I'm trying to make a use case to the CTO of why Gluster could solve a very specific problem, which is we've got some applications out in the cloud, we've got some applications in our in-house data center, and we need them to be able to talk to each other using the same data very quickly. Gluster would be an appropriate use for something like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of our customers come to us because of the flexibility that you get with a software-only approach towards storage. It's across the virtual environment, in the data center, or in the cloud, and making all that data available in one namespace. All the applications can see it regardless of where it's stored. So it's transparent to them. It gives a lot of flexibility to the way applications are deployed. So it's a good reason to check out Gluster and evaluate that as a storage solution. A lot of customers come to us in order to control the costs, right? That storage costs are growing at a very fast rate for organizations, and they're looking for a way to control those costs, starting with something like an open source file system. Gives them a way to control that cost and the added flexibility of being able to deploy it where they want on an infrastructure that makes sense for them.
All right, well guys, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Locker Gnome coverage of OSCON is brought to you by HP.